Let's talk about Mahito's 0.2-second domain expansion. How did he do that? And more importantly, why didn't Sukuna eviscerate him for touching his soul? And shout out to Christian for the sponsored video. This was the Cash App from yesterday that forgot to add a question, but we figured it out. Also, speaking of the sponsor videos, holy shit. Quinn, thank you, dude. Like, Quinn didn't even have a question. He just wanted to show some love. I really appreciate it, man. For real. Almost forgot that Quinn did just ask who my favorite JJK character was. So I'm going to say Toto for now, and that definitely has a little bit to do with the recency bias of, getting to see season 2 animated and the amazing Toto moments we got there. But just in general, Toto is definitely one of my favorites, probably top 3 across everything. But I'm a very indecisive person, and my mood definitely shifts depending on kind of what's happening in the manga. So I wouldn't say like he's cemented my favorite for sure forever, but right now I gotta go with Toto. And I don't know why this photo is like distorted, but we're just gonna go with it. So now to the domain expansion. And first I want to explain how and why Mahito did this, because that kind of informs then the Sukuna part of the question. So he did it from copying Gojo. Mahito was in this kind of unique situation where he doesn't really want to open the domain because Yuji is there and therefore Sukuna, but he also needs to because he's in a 2v1 and he's got to do something about Toto, right? So he learned from watching what Gojo did in Shibuya and he copies that himself. And the reason he is able to do this is because he had just hit a Black Flash and he's operating at 120% of his potential. So that brings us to this. Clearly, he did touch Yuji's soul, which is why he got to like interact with Sukuna in this innate domain. So why didn't Sukuna do anything about it? And this is actually a highly contentious debate amongst a lot of JJK people. People have different ideas. And the first thing I just want to say is that there's clearly time dilation going on here. And all I mean by that is that clearly more than 0.2 seconds passes in the innate domain because they kind of have a conversation. Sukuna doesn't say anything, but Mahito says like 3 different things, right? And there's no way he can talk that fast. So more than 0.2 seconds passes here, but that is just kind of irrelevant. You just need to think of it more as like a narrative device that Gege wanted to kind of have this moment between the two of them, but it's not necessarily happening during the 0.2 seconds. I say all of that to just say that clearly Sukuna had enough time during this conversation to strike Mahito if he wanted, but in reality, he didn't have that much time, if that makes sense. All right, so what am I getting at? The point is that this domain expansion was a massive risk for Mahito. Like he says, let's take a gamble. And in the manga, he says it's an all or nothing move. So what he's doing is just hoping that a 0.2 second domain expansion will either be not enough time for Sukuna to respond and attack him, or because he is doing this sophisticated maneuver, he's just going to hope Sukuna will let it slide, since like his intentions are clearly to just get in and out, deal with Toto, and not mess with Sukuna. So a lot of people believe this first way, that Mahito just did it so fast and Sukuna didn't have time to retaliate, which is possible, but a lot of people misconstrue something Mahito says to back up that point, because Mahito talks about, you won't have time to switch with the boy before I can finish him off. So he's not referring to having enough time in this 0.2 seconds for Sukuna to switch, because first of all, Sukuna can't switch. Yuji has to be the one to do it. And also, he doesn't need to switch when Mahito is in the innate domain, just like we saw in season 1. If you're in Sukuna's innate domain, if you're touching his soul, he doesn't have to be in control of the physical body. He can deal damage to you in that moment, because in season 1, when Yuji saved Nanami, he didn't switch with Sukuna. It just happened. So he's talking about something different. He's talking about like if he were to like beat up Yuji to the point where he was about to get then at that point, Yuji might switch with Sukuna to save his own life. And Mahito's saying he'll deal with Yuji before that's even possible. Now, for my money, it's option 2. 0.2 seconds is really quick. And again, we're not even talking about the time dilation moment. I'm just saying in literally 0.2 seconds, I still think Sukuna could have done something about it if he wanted to. I think he didn't, because on some level, there is some respect for what Mahito is doing. If you'll recall, in his final moments with Jogo, he was telling Jogo, you should have burned it all. You should have, given up everything and just pursued your own ideals for strength, right? I think he respects that Mahito is doing that. Mahito, in a way, is living by the same ideals that Sukuna does. Not exactly, but in the same way, he's just kind of throwing everything away in the pursuit of his own desires. So I think that, combined with the fact that clearly Mahito is not trying to mess with Sukuna's soul, and it is just 0.2 seconds, Sukuna lets it slide. And something to back up my perspective here is in season 1, when Mahito entered the innate domain, you can see Sukuna is up on his throne of skulls there, always looking down upon him, which is the same thing that happens when Yuji enters the domain. Sukuna views himself as above everyone else. However, in this moment, they're standing level with one another, and I don't think these type of artistic design choices are coincidence or just random. So obviously Mahito is not on an equal playing field with Sukuna, nor does Sukuna like respect Mahito as an equal, but I think he does have an appreciation and respect for his game in this moment. So again, I think all those things combined, he's just letting it slide.